Hello world, Mr. Girlymicro here with another episode of the Girlymicro podcast. It is a special episode today. It's an on-tour podcast as we are no longer within Girlymicro Towers. We are currently on the Norfolk coast in Hunstanton, or Sunny.
It's the most awful name.
We are blessed, despite this being mid-January, with the most gorgeous weather. It is bitterly cold, however.
So cold.
The wind is coming off the North Sea / the Wash, and it cuts you straight to the bone.
Mr. Girlymicro insists on going out for walks, and I insist on watching Murder, She Wrote under a blanket.
Yeah, but when you're out there, I walk out with my camera and nature's set photography to easy mode because it's just so glorious.
So we're here for what is called a gaming convention.
And by gaming, we mean role-playing, board games, rather than video games.
Yeah.
Although we also indulge in that.
So this convention is what we call a tabletop convention, mostly. So that's the kind of D&D that you see in things like Stranger Things. Mr. Girlymicro and I also do something called freeforming, which is more like your murder mystery solving, lots of people in costume, and trying to kind of work through different kinds of scenarios, different challenges. But this time, mostly tabletop and board gaming.
Indeed, and this is the first time we've been to this con. This is Contingency. It's been running for 6-7 years now, but this is the first time we've made it here, and it's actually the first con we've made it to for about 3 or 4 years. I mean,
because pandemic.
Just don't mention the word.
It's been pretty challenging. So cons are important to us because this is how Mr. Girlymicro and I met 20 years ago.
20 plus?
Yeah, 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, Gen Con Olympia in London.
We sat on the same sofa.
I was reading the Slayer's Guide to Female Gamers, and for some reason, this vision of loveliness sat on our sofa and spoke to me despite my reading material.
Yeah, I mean, I was all good with the challenging some of the female gaming concepts. But I think as this is the Girlymicro podcast, one of the things that is important to talk about is actually how does this relate to the real world? Because obviously I think people think that of gaming as escapism, but it does actually build like specific skill sets that can be quite useful.
Such as?
So I think for me, especially freeforms. So freeforms, 30 to 80 people in a room.
I mean, for those who aren't familiar with the term LARP, or live action role playing, is another term that can be used, although that's commonly associated with hitting people with rubber swords, which is...
It's not what Girlymicro does. She doesn't like the outside.
It's adjacent, but not completely dissimilar.
So those games tend to be... you have your character sheet, so you have your set of goals, you have your set of objectives. You may be trying to find out who a murderer is. You may be trying to, I don't know, become the next queen and start a coup.
But less about your weekends.
But the way they relate is they help with a few things, really. One, I must admit that in the ever-changing world of working in the NHS, things fly at you all the time. You have to process information quite rapidly and work out how to deal with problems that you just didn't know they were coming. And actually, that's quite a lot of what kind of being in a freeform is. You're constantly having to handle information on a fly and work out what's useful to you, what's not useful to you, who you want to speak to, how you need to navigate. And because everybody has different objectives, everybody's after different things, working out who in a space can work with you to achieve what you want to achieve, even if you want it for different reasons.
Or if you're Mr. Girlymicro, then you sit in the corner like a rabbit in the headlights wondering what the hell's going on.
It's sometimes quite useful to dealing with some of the politics of being a senior leader in the NHS, because a lot of the same principles apply in terms of how you navigate, how you communicate, how you kind of have conversations with people who want different things.
But without the ability card that you have a fair escape.
Yeah. I mean, oh my God, if only. If only I just had ability cards that I could play that went, this person gives you what you want. Wouldn't that be lovely in everyday life? Not so much the reality. And so I think that people think that gaming is all about escapism. And it is, it's true. It's brilliant. Like I spent yesterday playing at Lady Astrid, who's one of my favourite Victorian gentlewomen, trying to stop a hag decimating a village in kind of northern England. That's not necessarily going to help me when I get back to work on Monday. But there's a lot of that problem solving that is really, really useful. The other thing about being here is the birds.
Oh, the birds. Now, one thing we became aware of at this con before we arrived is that there's a long-standing tradition of associating with ducks. There were quite a few ducks on the site, and we were aware of the quackening. And a variety of other things. They actually sell duck food over at the con centre where they set up the desk. But this morning we experienced the quackening in its fullest.
I mean, 10 ducks simultaneously, kind of desperately invading the lodge.
We've seen them around, but this morning there were two, a pair of it was a mallard and a pair of ducks on our lodge patio deck. And so we went, oh, goody, ducks, we can feed them. And they were lovely, and they actually came and ate out their hand. We were warned they will come into the lodge.
And hand hygiene was undertaken, people. Do not fear.
It was. But then more ducks appeared. And we fed those, and then more ducks appeared until we had 10 ducks eating out of our hands and fighting each other for our food straight out the patio doors, which was both lovely and a what if they decided to attack? Because they could, and then we wouldn't be able to defend ourselves.
And the inevitable, are we doing a bad thing because of bird flu conversation? Is it bad that we're encouraging mixing amongst the ducks?
But they would look so hungry and so cold through the doors.
Did look so, and we had specific bags of food for them, and oh my god, they were so cute. I love a duckling, really.
Love a duck.
I do. And so I suppose this kind of takes us to that kind of conversation about really. Over Christmas, everybody was aware that there were issues in terms of getting turkeys and things. And what does bird flu mean? Does it mean that we need to change our behaviour, especially when we're out in the country? I suspect it's slightly different for us because this is blatantly a community of ducks, but actually people going out into...
And we are not ducks.
And I am not a duck. But, I don't want to kiss a duck. I mean, actually, mostly bird flu has to go through other intermediate mammal host people. So unless you're getting well up close and personal with your duck that you have at home that you've exposed outside.
I can hear the romantic music right now.
I mean, it is possible. I mean, poultry keepers do get bird flu from direct transfer, but usually it's getting very close to your duck for a prolonged period of time. One of the interesting things is that you then don't really get human-to-human transmission of things like bird flu. It kind of needs to go through an intermediate host, like something like a pig, that has both types of receptors, which then modifies it so that you then get person-to-person, which is why everybody talks about swine flu so much in terms of when you get big outbreaks of influenza. That and the fact that the swine flu pandemic was supposedly having gone through pigs. In terms of other things, though, there are plenty of seagulls here.
There are. There's the wreck of the steam trawler Sheraton, a little bit further up the coast, and we have the red and white chalk cliffs. Lots of oyster catchers and other types of birdfowl. And some nice restaurants as well.
Yeah, it is really not a bad place to come. We did desperately try to get to the Sea Life Centre because... we may have not talked about this before, but I have a slight obsession with going to aquarium. Is it aquaria? I don't know. Because...
technical term, that.
Yeah. Because Dr. Lena Civic and I once discovered randomly when we were at a aquarium in Valencia for the FEMS, the Federation of European Microbiology Society conferences, a fish called the boops fish. And we were so excited by the boops fish that now every time we travel to a conference for work, we make sure that if there is an aquarium, we visit it in order to see if we can suddenly find again another pairing of boops fish.
It's
and
commonly
sadly,
called the bogue, a species of sea bream.
yeah, sadly, listeners, we have yet to find the boops fish, and there will definitely be no finding it this time because apparently the Sea Life Centre is only open for about 3 hours a day, and so it is unlikely we're going to manage to get there.
However, it was Penguin Awareness Day yesterday, and so we are aware of where our penguins are.
It's true. We have taken an audit. It's very important that you know where your penguins are at.
Indeed.
It is not worthy of you to not be aware.
And there are otters as well.
Yeah.
Very cute.
I mean, they're not fitting in with my penguin or bird flu theme, but yes, there are also otters. I don't know whether otters can get influenza. That will be my homework for the following week. So thank you for joining us for Girlymicro on Tour. As ever, all opinions are our own.